Hi everybody, welcome to our webinar on postgraduate study in the U.S. This webinar will briefly cover how to get started on the process of researching if U.S. study is right for you, if postgraduate study is right for you, what components are involved in the application process, and how Fulbright can help you if you are interested in applying. My name is Jamie Dunn. I am a Communication Officer and Educational Advisor at the US-UK Fulbright Commission, and I'm just going to briefly again walk you through this presentation. First, a little bit about the Fulbright Commission. The US-UK Fulbright Commission was founded in the aftermath of World War II by Senator Fulbright. He was a US Senator, and he felt what better way to help prevent a World War III than to initiate more cultural exchanges. So the mission of the Fulbright Commission is to promote peace and mutual understanding through educational exchange. And we do that in two ways. One way is through our Fulbright Awards program. We provide scholarships for postgraduate study and research. The other way is through our advisory service. Our advisory service helps anyone interested in any level of U.S. study. It's also part of the Education USA network of over 400 advising centers worldwide. We are the only official source of U.S. study in the UK. We're also a not-for-profit, and we're funded by both the U.S. and UK governments. So why study in the U.S.? This is a question you may be considering, is U.S. study the best fit for me as I think about doing my postgraduate degree? And what I'm going to do is go over some of the reasons why you may want to consider U.S. study. We surveyed British students before they were heading out to the States. So these are British students who decided to go ahead and complete study in the U.S. And we asked them this very question, why did you decide to study in the U.S.? And about 91% of them in this survey responded that the quality and reputation of U.S. universities was an important factor, an important reason why. So not only how U.S. universities are respected all over the world, but also the wide range of institutions available in the U.S. is important to note as well. There are over 1,700 U.S. universities offering postgraduate degrees, and with so many to choose from, students are more likely to find a university that's the right fit for them and the right location, the right academic department, etc. Another reason students choose to study in the U.S. At the postgraduate level is the funding opportunities. There are so many funding opportunities, again, especially for master's or PhD students. About $50 billion is invested annually into research and development on U.S. university campuses. And about 46% of international graduate students cite, a U.S. university as their primary source of funding. This funding is typically in the form of an assistantship. An assistantship is basically an exchange for that a student can work out with the university department. So if we're working for about 20 hours a week on campus, again, for the university department or office, or helping a professor or helping do research. In exchange for that, the university might award the student either partial funding, or it might help them fully fund their studies. Another reason students cite U.S. study cite an important reason why they chose U.S. study is really the flexibility of the degree program. At the postgraduate level, it's quite flexible, and you're able to shape your program and your academic experience. Whether you are looking for more of an interdisciplinary experience, so you're looking to explore your topic through different lenses, maybe taking classes outside of your department, or if you're looking to really go in depth with a research topic, really focus focus in. And again, this could be shaped by the types of classes you take. In your department, with your course of study, you'll have core modules or core classes that your department would like you to take, but then they might also offer you what are known as electives. So again, modules are classes that you're allowed to, you have a little bit more flexibility, and you're allowed to choose how you would like to, what types of classes you'd like to take. And again, some students choose to stick within their department and really focus in. Some may decide to branch out a bit. Flexibility to your program or add something to your program through attending professional conferences. So perhaps your department has funding to send graduate students to conferences, through doing projects and working with other graduate students or professors, maybe helping to co-author papers, where again that allows you to shape your program and shape your academic experience. Of course, as postgraduate students, the most important part of your experience is academics, but occasionally you're going to want to get out of the lab or library, and of course the opportunity to experience U.S. campus life is an important part, an important reason why, again, students choose U.S. study. About 75% of the students that we surveyed in our pre-departure survey said that, again, this was an important reason to them. On each U.S. campus, there's likely to be hundreds of organizations to get involved in, either something social like International Student Society or some types of sports league available that you can get involved in to meet other international students or meet U.S. students, or you might find organizations that you have an eye to add to your CV, so maybe a professional society offered within the department or a graduate student society that can help you network, and again, it can add to your CV. Another reason you may want to consider U.S. study is to internationalize and strengthen your CV. According to the Council for Industry and Higher Education, they surveyed 230 major UK employers, and 1 in 3 employers valued job applicants with international study experience. 65% of employers favored applicants with overseas work experience. Now, you may gain this work experience if you decide to do an assistantship, if you're offered an assistantship by the university that we talked about earlier. Also, it's important to note that you may gain work experience in the U.S. because with your student visa, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours a week during term time on campus and up to 40 hours a week during holiday time, again, on campus. You're also allowed to participate in something known as optional practical training. Optional practical training, or OPT as it's known for short, means that you are allowed to stay in the U.S. a year after you've completed your degree and work in your field of study. For some of the sciences, you are allowed to stay up to 2 years and again work in your field of study. So all of this experience working on campus or again through optional practical training can help internationalize your CV, which is very attractive to employers. The last reason I want to cite that you might want to consider U.S. study is, of course, to learn about a new culture, explore that special relationship between the U.S. and UK, and really broaden your worldview and horizons. The U.S. spans 6 time zones, and there's such diversity in people, geography, and culture. And really, what better way than to go explore it for yourself? Also, Fulbright is about exchange, and so we would not only encourage you to go and explore the U.S., whether it be the campus community or local community or travel around the U.S. visiting different regions, but we would also like to say, it's about you sharing with the U.S. students and other international students what it's like to be a UK student, whether you're discussing funny topics or accents or etc., or you're talking about world affairs and current events. It really is an important and valuable experience that you really gain through study abroad. And something that, of course, academics are important and the U.S. campus life is important, but something that shouldn't be forgotten. So now that we've talked about some reasons why you might want to consider U.S. study, I'm just going to briefly go over some terminology differences between the U.S. and UK. So first, for example, college, university, institute, school, you might find that Americans use those words interchangeably with the word university in the UK. Class or course, you might have heard me mention earlier in the presentation, those are used interchangeably with module, degree program, course, etc. If someone's referring to undergraduate study, they mean, your first degree. Also, graduate study is interchangeable with postgraduate study. A public school or public university in the U.S. means something a little bit different than it means in the U.K. A public university is a university that has received state funding. You might find that public universities tend to be a little bit larger than private universities, larger facilities, larger student population. So just something to bear in mind. So again, some differences between the US and UK I'd like to cover include some of the following points. So first, there are no pure research degrees in the US. So no matter what you're studying, at some point there's going to be a taught element to it. And that's really important to note, especially for students who think, well, I just want to be locked away in a lab or library, never really to interact with another human being again. You might want to consider, is US study right for me? Now, I would encourage you, even if you want to work in a lab or go in depth with research, I would say that having a taught element is very valuable, and working with your peers and teamwork is valuable for employment and for if you want to enter further academia. But again, just to note, there are no pure research degrees. Coursework is expressed in credit hours, which means essentially the university says in order to graduate with a postgraduate degree, you need to complete a certain amount of credit hours at our institution for this degree. Each module you take will have assigned to it a certain amount of credit hours. It typically tends to be how many hours a week you spend in that class. But again, you'll want to keep an eye on how many credit hours this university expects me to complete in order to graduate with this degree. And that'll inform how many classes you'll be taking. Unlike undergraduate study in the UK, there are no set fees, there's no UCAS, there's no common application, so essentially you are applying to each university individually. And also, again, that's a theme with US universities, that each individually will set their own admissions policies, financial aid policies, etc. And so as you're investigating universities, it's important that you keep track very carefully of what each institution expects and by when, and the types of funding that they offer through their departments at the university. So being organized is very helpful. But again, there's no UCAS. You're applying to each university individually. Last difference I want to note is that law and medicine are studied at the postgraduate level in the US, not at the undergraduate level. So if you are interested in those topics, please bear that in mind. We have more information about studying law and medicine in the U.S. On our website, www.fulbright.org.uk, if you're interested in those two topics. But I'm going to move on to the types of degrees on offer. So at the postgraduate level, tends to be, you'll find, two types of master's degrees. Some master's degree programs, you'll notice, tend to be a bit more academic or research in nature. They tend to be about 2 years long, and you'll also find that at the end there's likely to be a thesis component. This tends to be for people who are looking to perhaps go on and do a PhD or do further research. So that's just the academic research master's degree. A professional master's degree is what its name suggests. It's doing a master's degree for a particular profession. So for example, master's in business administration or architecture or social work. Usually these types of degrees, again, will have a core set of core classes followed by electives, allowing students to specialize in their field. And and again, it's for entering a particular profession. That means that they might have a short thesis component at the end, but also what might be available at the end of the degree is a capstone course or some type of practical experience like an internship. These professional degrees may be 1, maybe 2 years long, and it varies depending on the type of degree, so what subject you're studying, and the university. A different type of degree program would be the doctoral degree or PhD. In the States, it might take 4 to 6 years, but again, this can vary depending on the research you're doing and your subject and how you're doing it. But again, it tends to be about 4 to 6 years. In general, the first 2 years of a PhD may consist of doing coursework, and then once you finish that coursework, you might have to sit written exams or do an oral exam before you can embark on your dissertation research. So again, this is quite different than in the UK, where you might find PhDs are a bit shorter. That being said, I think the coursework element's very important, because then students have the freedom to really have an idea and talk with professors, talk with faculty members about their dissertation topic. This coursework might change it slightly, so they have this time to play around a bit before they really buckle down and begin their dissertation research. If you are a student who's already done a master's degree in the UK and you're thinking, oh no, do I have to start all over and do another 4 to 6 years? Well, what you might find is that some universities, if you're looking to do a PhD in the same subject that you did your master's in, what they'll do is they'll take a look at the coursework and the research you completed in your master's in the UK, and they might give you advanced credit or advanced standing for your doctoral degree in the US, which means you might be excused from some of the coursework that they require during those first 2 years or so. Another type of degree would be a law degree. There are 2 types of law degrees. The first is a Juris Doctorate. That is for people who are looking to practice law in the U.S. A JD degree is 3 years in length. And again, most U.S. students would have gone and done a first degree in a related topic, and then they would go on to law school again for 3 years to do a JD. Just one point I do want to emphasize is that a JD is, again, for solely practicing law in the U.S. So you learn about U.S. tax law, tort law, etc. After completing the JD, students who want to be lawyers in the U.S. then have to sit a bar exam in whatever state they're looking to practice in. Now, because international students may or may not get a work visa at the end of their degree, because it's not guaranteed, and if you're spending 3 years learning solely how to practice U.S. law, you need to have a backup plan as to how you're going to use this law degree. So some students, international students, say they're fine if they don't get a work visa in the U.S., that they will apply their JD to an international law firm in the UK, or they want to work for an international organization and they think having a JD would be important. The other type of law degree, though, that a lot of international students choose to do because of its flexibility and the fact that you can carry it internationally, would be an LLM, or a master's in law. So this would be for people who already have a first degree in law in their home country, so maybe perhaps an LLB in the UK, and you're looking to not only gain U.S. study experience, but also to specialize in a particular subject. So maybe you want to specialize in international law or intellectual property or something like that. And because it's a universal topic, even though you're studying in the US, you can carry it back with you to the UK. Again, more information about law is available on our website. Medicine, similar to law in that it's a postgraduate program in the US, so students would have studied a related topic in their first degree, and then go ahead and do 4 years at a medical school. Again, the trouble is with international students interested in medicine that they have to note that they are not guaranteed a work visa in the U.S. So if they do decide to do medical school in the U.S., they have to think about how is that going to transfer, and are they going to be able to practice medicine in their home country. What might be a smoother option is actually looking into doing a residency exchange. So when you're doing your practical medical experience, looking into doing a residency exchange in the U.S. More information about medicine is available on the website. Now the last two options I want to mention is first doing a joint degree program. That means you're doing two types of degrees at the same time. You're combining them, which can make the process a little bit quicker. So for example, if you're looking to do perhaps a JD and an MBA, maybe you can combine those degrees, and instead of spending several years in the JD and then starting over and doing the MBA, you can work, cut off some time and work doing both degrees at once. And some universities will offer this option. The last type of degree program would be a visiting or non-degree seeking student, which means that you're not actually going and attending the university to obtain a degree from the university. It's for students who are looking to gain some type of short-term experience at a U.S. institution, maybe because you want to work with a certain professor or lab or use a certain resource or do some short-term research in the U.S. And so again, you're not going over to obtain a degree, but you will enroll and have some short-term status as a student at the university. This is an ideal timeline of where students should be when they're considering applying for U.S. study. If you feel you don't perfectly fit into this timeline, it's okay. You just might need to work at a quicker pace. But again, this is the ideal timeline of how it would work. So about at least a year and a half before you'd like to start studying in the U.S., you would start researching U.S. higher education and the admissions process, which is, listening to this webinar, going onto the Fulbright website, talking to an advisor. So starting to get a feel, is the U.S. higher education system a good fit for me? And then at the spring/early summer of your second year, you start researching universities. The beginning of your third year, you'll want to finalize how many universities you're applying to. We say 4 to 6 in the slide, but you can apply to as many universities as you want. Just because each application process is a little bit longer, we suggest narrowing it down to 4 to 6 well-chosen universities. You'll also want to note that the Fulbright Award application is due the 15th of November for students interested in starting in 2013-14. So please bear that in mind as you're putting your applications together. You might also want to think about putting your Fulbright Award application together. You'll want to sit an admissions exam. It's typically the GRE, which I'll talk about on another slide, again before the admissions deadline. You'll find that the admissions deadlines for postgraduate study in the U.S. tend to fall in the late autumn, early winter, so maybe December into early January or February for starting, so about 8 to 10 months ahead of when you'd want to start. Next, you receive your admissions decision in the early spring. You then notify the university if you're interested in attending, apply for your student visa, and then I would strongly encourage you, I know this seems far away, but read the pre-departure information section of our website. We've had U.S. study abroad interns work very hard on this to bring you as up-to-date information about U.S. campus life and travel tips and packing tips and all kinds of information, health insurance, banking, etc., that you'll need to know before you go to the States. And then typically the academic year starts in late August, early September in the U.S. We have this timeline in more detail, again, available on our website. I'm going to briefly go over some of the application components. This is by no means an in-depth explanation, just because this webinar is about getting started and looking into the process. If you're interested in more information, you can look at our website or talk to an advisor or email us if you have any questions. But this is just a helpful guide to get you started. First, as a reminder, you're submitting an application to each university. You can submit as many applications or to to as many universities as you want, but we again suggest a well-chosen list of 5 to 6 universities, just because you don't want to be spending all day every day for weeks doing applications. And if you're applying to too many universities, let's say 20, you haven't really done your research. You need to really narrow down the field a bit. We have a section about choosing a degree program and choosing university on our website, because I know I haven't covered it in this presentation if you want to have a look at that. So basically, the application components typically that a U.S. university will require for a postgraduate study include an application form where they're asked about background information and provide some context for where you're coming from. They're going to look into admissions exam scores. Most graduate programs, not all, certainly not all, but most graduate programs will require that the student sits an admissions test. It's typically the GRE. For some MBA programs, they might require the GMAT. For medical programs, the MCAT. For JD programs, the LSAT. So when you're looking at universities and you're looking at programs, double check their admissions, double check that you know if you need to take an admissions test, and if so, which one. But again, for most programs, it's typically the GRE. You can sit this exam. There are testing centers in the UK. If you go to our website, we have links to the testing center. The GRE will test you in math, verbal, reading, and a writing section. So as you're preparing for the exam, if you haven't done math in a while or you need to brush up on some of your verbal, I would really suggest taking a look at some of the free practice material. Again, we link to from our website, and the GRE links to from their website. So again, application form, admissions test, the university will expect a transcript. A transcript is basically your marks from your first degree on official university letterhead. So your current university would need to produce this. If they aren't sure how to make a transcript, if they're not sure what to include, we do have sample transcripts on our website. The next component would be a personal statement. Again, something most U.S. universities are going to require. This, essentially in a nutshell, is a statement describing your academic interests, professional and personal goals, relevant experience, and how sort of convincing the department and the committee or the staff members reading your application, convincing them, how their university and their department and their program is going to be a good fit for these goals and for what you're looking to achieve. And it's a good fit for you and who you are. And also that you're a good fit for them, especially if you're doing a PhD. You might be there for several years. They want to make sure it's a good match. Most U.S. universities will require 2 to 3 recommendation letters. Again, they'll specify this. They might say they want 2 academic referees and maybe 1 from outside of university. If you've been outside of university for quite a while, you've been working for a couple years, you might want to ask the admissions office if they'd be willing to accept, instead of 2 academic references, maybe 1, and then the other referee might be someone that you, a supervisor or someone that you work with. But you'll have to double check with the university if they'd be willing to accept that. They'll maybe ask for a CV, so again, to see if you have any relevant extracurricular involvement in the topic or relevant work experience. They might also ask for an application fee. They'll probably ask for an application fee. This might be about $50 to $100 a piece. So again, when I mentioned that picking a well-chosen list, one reason is not only the time you're spending on each application, but again, there's a fee associated with each one. You probably won't have to do interviews for a majority of programs, but for an MBA, you will likely have to do an interview. This might be set up with an alum based in the UK, or perhaps you have to Skype with someone from the university for your interview. For someone interested in doing something in the arts, I mean, obviously there might be some type of audition component. Again, you might find university representatives in the UK that you would audition for, or perhaps you have to send an audition tape to them. As you might expect, for someone interested in photography or writing, they might want a portfolio or samples of that. They might also if you're interested in doing an assistantship, or they might also ask for a sample of your research or a sample of your work. So you can hand in a paper you've probably done before. You can clarify with them. Again, just to get a feel for how you do your research, how you work, what's your writing style like. But again, this varies. All these components vary depending on the institution, depending on the program you're doing. So it's so important to just double check the components. And if you're ever confused by any of them, you can certainly look on our website, but you can also talk to the universities, talk to the departments, just to make sure you're clear on all of the components, you're not missing something, and you're submitting everything that you're supposed to. So how will they pick the students that they want to attend the university, that they want in their department? Well, the first thing that they're going to look at is academics. They're going to see what you did during your first degree. Most U.S. universities probably have a minimum standard that you received at least a 2.2 in your undergraduate degree, but again, this varies between institutions. And I expect, and I'm sure you would expect, that the more competitive the institution, the higher the minimum they probably are looking for. They're also going to take, after academics, they're going to take a look at your admissions test results, seeing how you did on that. And really, the next, so after academics, what you did in your first degree, after admissions test, the next thing they're going to look at is, again, what I alluded to earlier, match, academic fit, how you fit their institution and how they fit you. And they might gain this from your personal statement, they might gain this from the recommendation letters or other components as part of the application. But really, they're looking for compelling reasons to see why you're a good fit for that institution. And why you picked that particular degree program, how it's going to help you achieve what you're looking to do later in life. And, one thing that the university might be interested in is, there are great institutions in the UK. Why are you deciding to study in the US? So it's your job to really make it clear to them these points. The next point that they're going to consider is just to see if you have any relevant work or research experience or coursework or extracurricular activities, something that shows your interest in the topic, and again, any experience you have in the topic. If you're switching subjects, if you're going from one subject and then studying something a little bit different, perhaps in the personal statement you might want to address why you're making this switch, just because they might not be sure, they might not be able to connect the dots from your first degree to their program. You might want to have one of your referees address it, saying, I know she's coming from a different background, but I think she'd be capable of handling the work at your institution, and this degree would be a good fit for her. So make sure you connect the dots for the institution, and that because they are looking at your application as a whole. The other component they will look at is extracurricular involvement, and I mentioned this earlier. Again, are you doing activities having to do with your subject, or just volunteer work in general, or what have you done during your first degree? How have you spent the last couple years at that institution? Because if you're going to get involved during your first degree and your time now, then maybe you will get involved in a graduate society or professional society on their campus. And maybe, again, you have relevant work experience or outside experience that would be helpful. So, to review, I've briefly gone over some reasons why you might want to consider U.S. study, some of the differences between the U.S. and the UK at the postgraduate level. I've also gone over a very basic explanation of the application components typically involved, as well as how do universities make their admissions decision. The last point I want to cover is ways Fulbright can support you as you research postgraduate study in the US. The first is our website, which I keep mentioning throughout the presentation, but I think it's really important, www.fulbright.org.uk. We have a Study in the USA tab, and you go underneath that, and again, everything you'd want to know more about postgraduate study in the US, from how to choose an institution, to where can you sit your GRE, to how do you fund your studies, etc. Speaking of funding, we also have the Fulbright Awards tab. Again, we offer scholarships for postgraduate study and research in the U.S. If you're a non-UK citizen, if you're an international student tuning in, you are certainly more than welcome to use our advising services and use our website and come to our events. But it's important to note that for the Fulbright Awards, you do have to apply through your country of citizenship. So I would recommend looking up Fulbright in your country, and even if you've completed your degree in the UK, and seeing if you can apply through them for the scholarship. We also have a resource library. We're based in London. It's open Mondays 1:30 to 7, Thursdays 1:30 to 5:30. So if you have a question, you come in and talk to an advisor. That being said, please check our online calendar before you come in, because occasionally our office is closed on a Monday or Thursday, and we wouldn't want you coming all the way down and we're not open. So please double check the calendar, but otherwise we're open Mondays and Thursdays. We also have a phone and email inquiry service, though we do recommend checking on the website first, because the answer to your question is probably on there, but we do take questions, again, via phone and email. We have a grad school day event. The next grad school day event, USA Grad School Day, will be the 16th of October 2012. It's going to be in London. So if you're obviously interested in U.S. study, if you have friends interested in U.S. study, please tell them about it. You can register on our website. And again, it'll be an in-depth workshop on postgraduate admissions. We also try to, every year that we have it, we try to invite Fulbright alumni to come and speak, and we also talk about the awards program. You'll find more information about it on our website, but just something to put in the diary. You're tuning into a webinar. Obviously, we occasionally have webinars on either just generally about postgraduate, undergraduate study, but also on specialized topics that we link to from our website. So please have a look at the webinars page. We're also on social media, so we have a Facebook group page, so please like us. We also have a group for students who decide to apply. They're successful, they get into university in the U.S., they decide they want to go over. If you take our pre-departure survey, which is linked to from the pre-departure section of our website, you're then invited to join a Facebook group for British students heading to the U.S., which is really neat. We also have Twitter feeds, one for Fulbright in general, a commission-wide feed. We have one for the Fulbright Awards program specifically, one that just offers U.S. study advice and lets you know about U.S. study events in the UK. Our YouTube channel, US-UK Fulbright, has videos of students who successfully applied to the U.S. giving their advice. We have videos from U.S. admissions counselors. We have videos talking about the visa process. So please tune into the YouTube channel and have a look at that. We also have a Flickr account, so if you're curious about, you want to see photos from other UK students in the U.S. Or photos from some of our events, you're more than welcome to take a look at that. Okay, I just want to wrap up. I want to say thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this presentation helpful. Again, it's a tool to really get you started on the postgraduate process. If you're looking for more in-depth information, please visit our website or attend one of our events. All right, and hopefully I'll speak to you or see you at an event soon.